Hey everyone, happy Friday. Cinephile Mike here, and today is day 50 of Oscar Rewind. Yes, 50 days, 50 new films have been reviewed that have reflected the work of this past year's Oscar nominees and winners. There are so many more to come, and so many more that I'm not even going to get to touch this season. So I hope you've been enjoying these. If this is your first time joining, welcome. Come and learn about all of this past year's Oscar nominees and winners' earlier works, the actors, the directors, the writers, the designers, the technicians. Everyone is fair game. As always, I will be discussing the film's own award season history, the critical response to box office information, and as always, these reviews are, say it with me, spoiler free. You can find earlier episodes of Oscar Rewind here on the channel, or you can go to my website, cinephilemike.com, for those and quicker links to a variety of other films I have reviewed. Additionally, on the website, I have now posted 32 print reviews of the 32 films I saw from the Edinburgh International Film Festival. Those reviews are all live, they're great to watch, and there's so much other content that I'm going to be bringing you soon reflecting on that film festival. Ah, so great it was. But today on Rewind, as I said, earlier this week we went to the beach, and today we head to camp in Maine. And yes, I maybe could have released this the day that it took place because it was a summer date, but for me, it's more special because today it's Friday. It's my last weekday because some of you know I'm a teacher. I'm back to school on Tuesday, so summer's over for me, kind of the same way it is for these campers. So let's talk about USA Films' Wet Hot American Summer. Written by David Wain and Michael Showalter and directed by Wain, the film debuted in the summer of 2001. Now, tragically, this film was initially both a box office and critical failure. Upon release, against a reported $1.8 million budget, it only made a domestic total of $295,206. And that actually accounts for the worldwide total because this film did not have an international release. Critically, a mixed bag. While there were some film critics who gave this film an A, for example, Owen Gleiberman from Entertainment Weekly at the time gave the film an A. Some people called it the best of the summer. On Rotten Tomatoes, though, that's our usual source. From a total of 76 critical ratings, the film sits with a 39%. Very rotten. However, on the audience side, it's skewed a bit more. It has a 75% audience score based on over 25,000 ratings, and the film in the 20 plus years has gained quite a cult following. So, you probably may have figured out why it's here, but if you're not sure, I'll tell you. Wet Hot American Summer lands on Rewind this season because of the man named Bradley Cooper. Now, Cooper, while he has yet to win, he's kind of starting to become the Susan Lucci of the Oscars. This year received not one, not two, but three Oscar nominations, his 10th, 11th, and 12th, for Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Actor for his biographical take of Leonard Bernstein in Maestro. Wet Hot American Summer marked one of his first feature film roles. And as he revealed recently, a fun story about him and this film. Many people know that Bradley Cooper studied at the Actors Studio. He did the master's program for his MFA. They're very big into the method, which is studied there. However, once he finished, and he did graduate from the program, but he missed graduation, as he said to James Lipton and other people in more recent interviews. Well, I was having sex with Michael Ian Black in a sports shed in Wet Hot American Summer. Yes, that is why he missed his graduation. So there's a story. As for an awards journey for Wet Hot American Summer, as per IMDb, there was only one sole nomination for the film at the Gotham Awards. Co-writer and director David Wain was nominated for the Open Palm Award, which is an award given to a breakthrough director. But he did not take it, ultimately losing to two of his competitors, Harry Bean for The Believer and John Cameron Mitchell for Hedwig and the Angry Inch. So, there's another Oscar Rewind connection with me. I talked about Hedwig and the Angry Inch earlier this season. You can find the review on cinephilemike.com and earlier on the YouTube channel. A summary for Wet Hot American Summer. It's hard because it's not a narrative film. So why don't I just tell you a little bit about what it is to stoke your interest? So it's August 18th, 1981, the last day of camp at Camp Firewood, a peaceful co-ed camp in the Maine woods where children come for the arts and crafts, facilitated by Gail, played by Molly Shannon. Or they may go for canoeing trips with the likes of Victor, played by Ken Marino, and Neil, played by Joe Lotruglio. Maybe they'll engage in the performing arts with Susie, played by Amy Poehler, and then, the reason why we're here, Bradley Cooper. Or what about some potentially dangerous water sports with Andy, played by Paul Rudd, JJ, played by Zach Orth, and Lindsay, played by Elizabeth Banks? Maybe they just want to really eat the food prepared by Gary, played by A.D. Miles, and Gene, played by Christopher Maloney. They can practice their sportsmanship with Coop, played by Michael Showalter, McKinley, played by Michael Ian Black, or Katie, played by Marguerite Moreau. Or maybe on this particular day, a neighbor of the camp, an associate professor, Henry, played by David Hyde Pierce, is going to come to do some science activities. We are all going to be under the watchful eye of camp director Beth, played by Janine Garofalo. Now, this last day will also culminate with the annual talent show. This cast of characters guides the campers on all of their own activities, as well as having their own full day of adventures with a side trip to town for some interesting activities. They'll fall in and out of love in a day. They'll practice their makeout skills with as many people as possible. And maybe dispose of some snitchy campers? That's just good where I'm going to leave it. Again, not a narrative film, a very exaggerated satirical look at camp life, not to be taken seriously. And the film wants you to know that from the get go. In the opening scene, the counselors come together for a meeting led by Beth, and now we clearly see that these actors are in their 20s, and for some of them, they're in their 30s. And yet, we have the Stockard Channing in Grease effect as she stands there with the clipboard and says, "Thank you all for a great summer. You're all 16, 17 years old." Seriously. So right away, they introduce you what the film is and how you have to appreciate the absurdity and not take it seriously. And that could have been why it didn't land with the critics at the time. But again, the film has gained quite a cult following over the years and so much love and popularity that it spawned not just one, but two limited series on Netflix, the prequel series, The First Day of Camp, which looks at the first day of camp of 1981, and then 10 years later, the sequel series, which joins the camp counselors at their 10-year camp reunion. Look, if you're trying to do some of the math and the dates in your head because you're hearing these names, this film predated Poehler being on SNL. It was one of Molly Shannon's first projects when she left. Rudd was known for Clueless, but hadn't really been as big of the draw as he is now. This film predates all of the um, Judd Apatow films, which would feature a lot of these casts. Those haven't come out quite yet. So the film didn't have the draw. The majority of the cast and crew was actually made up from, and maybe some of you out there are familiar with this, I hope. I am. I loved it. There was that sketch comedy show on MTV, The State. It was kind of like in living color, but extra because it was on cable, not network TV. So they got to push the envelope a little more, but it didn't quite land. They only had 25 episodes, which were broken up into 4 seasons, but they all played over the course of 1 year from 94, 95. Since then, those are the same folks that have gone on to create the Wet Hot series, Reno 911, and several other projects. So you're probably familiar with some of the other pieces they have. I'm not really going to break down the technical elements of the film, the cinematography, that and the costumes look great. They're very period and appropriate. It's filmed like a sitcom, and it works for this. We're just in an absurd following these counselors and these kids around. But one thing actually about the writing, there's an interesting juxtaposition because we have all these adult actors in their 20s and 30s clearly playing 16 and 17-year olds. They're excellent. They all lead into the archetypes that we've seen in the films it's sending up. You have the slacker, you have the horny teen, the nerdy guy, the overconfident guy, the guy looking for sex, the promiscuous teen, the cool guys. I mean, every stereotypical trope you can think of is presented here, and you just have to laugh at it. And interestingly enough, The kids, the campers that are in the film, played by kids, are actually more articulate. So this is clever with Wayne and Showalter in the writing that they make the counselors a little simplistic and the kids are the smarter. So that's entertaining. And when we get to the climax of a potentially life threatening event that involves NASA and the aftermath, like, okay, this film is along the lines of like the Monty Python Mel Brooks absurd comedy, which doesn't always land for some, lands for me, and does land for a lot of you. Now, specifically, I'm not going to go into all of the performances. They're all great, but I will say Cooper, particularly, he's the reason I'm here. He is a delight. His chemistry with Polar is great. And the romantic scene I referenced, the quote from why he missed his graduation, that one scene seems airlifted from another film, which works so well. And in some ways, I'm going to say this film was a little bit ahead of the time in the way it handled some of its themes, which I really respect for the film. I'm not going to spoil. I want to let you be the decider of that. And also for my music fans, the soundtrack, it's phenomenal. So because the film is set in 81, we have a lot of great hits from the 70s and early 80s. There's Jefferson Starship, Foreigner, Rick Springfield. We even have Godspell, the musical featured. So look, this film, this one's hard because I feel like there should be a guilty pleasure score and a critical score. Like I did with Straight Talk earlier this season, I gave it a 3 from a critical standpoint and a 5 for a guilty pleasure. I mean, this film is a 5-star guilty pleasure film for me. And while it hurts me, I'm going to go with the critical. But I'm not going to go down that much. I'm only going to say that this is a solid critical 4. There are a few things that I feel they didn't necessarily need to include, but they did. But ultimately, this is one of my favorite films. It's a 5-star guilty pleasure film for me, critically a 4-star. If you would like to see it, as of this recording at post, it is streaming exclusively on Stars, or you can rent or purchase it on most digital platforms. And if you are interested once you see it, or you haven't watched it in a while and you want to rewatch and you just need an extra fix, you can catch the prequel and sequel TV series streaming exclusively on Netflix. All right, like the John McLaughlin song, Summer is over. But Oscar Rewind is not. I will still keep coming back to you twice a week for at least 3 more months before we dive into award season, and then you'll be seeing me every day. As always, if you like what you heard here, please subscribe to the channel and spread the word. You can follow me on all social media platforms and on Letterboxd. Also, don't forget to check out the incredible Edinburgh coverage on cinephilemike.com, the reviews, the interviews, and some fun stuff that I'm going to be recording to release a top 5 of greatest hits, a near miss. All the fun stuff is going to be coming your way. But until then, happy watching, everyone. And until then, this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.